Hello to you all and welcome to another instalment of the ThePitCast by us here at the Pit Crew Online. From the fans, for the fans. George Russell's long-awaited move to Mercedes is official, albeit not to the surprise of anybody here. But the big question now is how will he fare against Lewis Hamilton? And of course, the knock-on effect being Valtteri Bottas signing a long-term deal with Alfa Romeo. I am your host, Adam Wheeler, your resident IndyCar editor at the Pit Crew Online. And what a mad few days it's been in the world of F1. But to digest it, as always, is Jess, our new deputy F1 editor.
Thank you. I'm excited to get into this one, though. We've been waiting a long time for this one, and I'm excited to get stuck into it. So, yeah, I'm ready.
Brilliant. And now joining us is a special guest making his debut on the ThePitCast. We're very excited to have our opinion columnist and experienced motorsport journalist, Dimitris. How are you, man? And would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. Hello, Adam. Hello, Jess. My name is Dimitris Bizas. I am Greek, which means I speak English in a non-accent, that I try to have an accent. I work as a motorsport editor in Greece and, of course, as an opinion columnist here in the Pit Crew Online. I'm just, passing by. I host my own podcast in Greece too. So, I have a fair amount of experience, but now I will try myself in English too.
Yeah. And we've had a couple of really good columns from Dimitris in the last couple of days. It's great to have you back on board after a little while. So, and it's been good seeing your updates on Twitter with all the driver silly season rumors. I know you're quite immersed in the world, and it's been fantastic to get your insight into everything that's going on.
Yeah, I got my fair share of sources, and I try to have as many of reliable news as I possibly can. But, we all do our job, and I applaud you for all the hard work that you do on a day-to-day basis on the Pit Crew Online, because I come in and get an opinion and that's it. But you do a lot of work on the weekends and all that. And I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you, man. Thank you. We do try other than our regular day jobs. But so before we dive in, guys, if you're new to the channel, please like this video and subscribe, whether you're viewing this on YouTube or Spotify. We've seen a slight uptick in viewers over the last couple of weeks and months, which has been great, but we would obviously love to get a few of you on board. So share the podcast, share the videos, and like our videos. And if you have a comment on anything that we're discussing, make sure to share your opinion with us on our social media channels. But let's get straight into it, guys. You both, I'm assuming, have gotten over the absolute shock of the announcements of Russell to Mercedes and Bottas to Alfa Romeo. But I guess we have to begin by asking, do you think there's any possibility that any other decision could have been taken by Mercedes, or do you think that this was pretty much more a straightforward decision than perhaps we were led to think, especially in regards to Russell? I'm going to start with Dimitris.
Well, back in May, I was informed that Toto Wolff was actually looking forward to have George Russell on board. And I was pretty perplexed by that, because we all know that he has a very high regard of Valtteri Bottas and his work in Mercedes, of course. And he knew the guy from the Williams days, so they do share a very big part of their past in Formula One. But it's not a move that should really shock us. It's a move that Mercedes had to make, and they had to make a system they had to prepare the system to actually welcome George, because he's younger than Valtteri, he's more motivated. He may be more talented in terms of fighting for the championship. That's a big commitment in terms of having a very young driver with a very experienced, a very good, and actually one of the best ever to do it, who is Lewis Hamilton. So it's a logical move, but I am 100% sure that it was a difficult move and a difficult decision for Toto and his team. But I believe it's the right one.
Jess, do you share Dimitri's thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it was only ever between Bottas and Russell. If anything, all we had to do was go off the Shakeup Grand Prix, last year. And then that was sort of, for me, that was decision made. It was just waiting for the announcement. As Dimitris said, it's a very logical move for them. He is the future for them. That's where they're heading. Let's be honest, Lewis Hamilton's not going to be in this sport for that much longer. This is when he does a Kimi Räikkönen and he stays for the next 10 years. But he is on his way out. So Russell is the future, and it will be interesting to see how he learns and grows with Hamilton, and how he develops into the future world champion that we all think he's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. And I think there's this sort of common theme here, which is like long-term strategic planning, which I think Mercedes have pulled a blinder here. They've kind of put George in at the right moment, kind of just a year or 2 or 3 before Hamilton eventually retires, giving him that bedding in period, giving him that time to slowly integrate the team and to sort of build into that leadership role, which I think everyone knows he can, because he's shown that ability at Williams that he can lead a team forward. Of course, Hamilton is the team leader. He always will be the team leader at Mercedes. But of course, Russell, we all know Russell's capabilities. He has the ability to step into that team and then to potentially shake things up and to, bring the team onto him, make everyone focus on him more than Hamilton. But I think this is a really clever move, actually. And, I think the interesting question is now, that Russell has earned the chance, how will he fare? Because he's thrived at Williams. He's been superb. He's done his learning, but you never know whether someone will perform when they're thrown in, at the front of F1. And I know, Jess, you said about the Sakir Grand Prix, but I mean, it's a one-off, wasn't it? And it was a one-off at a very particular short circuit. Can he do the same thing across an entire season of 20 to 22 races across a whole season?
I think the fact that he's managed to consistently perform in that Williams, it's not very good on race day, but he does have that pace in him, and he's been outperforming his machinery for a couple of years now. Like, it's not just a fluke that he got into Q3 twice. It's not just a fluke that his Williams was way up there and he's been consistently in Q2 all season. I think he will perform well, but I strongly believe we're going to end up in a Nico Rosberg Hamilton situation.
Oh no.
I don't want it to happen, but what I hope is that we get a Lewis Hamilton, Jenson Button type season where they were quite a good partnership between the two of them, and they were a good team pace. But I think we're either going to end up with an extremely strong battle or a really, really quick partnership, which potentially could do some great things. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Dimitris, what do you think? How do you think he will fare at Mercedes, especially up against a 7-time world champion?
I believe that, in part, I agree with Jess, that, Russell is the future of the team, and I'm sure he knows it, and I'm sure Lewis knows it too. I will say one thing. I believe that they are both British is a good thing for the team. As if I had the teammate that he was of my nationality, I do share some common values with him. I do share some common views with him. It's not a completely new world. That's why I tend to agree with the comparison of Lewis's and Jenson's relationship. You need two guys that can actually cooperate and have some common ground, if you will. I'm sure George will actually get some race wins next year if Mercedes is actually competitive and a race winning team, which by all means it could, even though new regulations are coming. They have the potential to actually be up there and stay in the front. But I'm sure that George will be more than happy to actually do the Valtteri Bottas thing for a couple of races, because he knows that the team actually sees in him a potential to lead them to future world championships in a new era when Lewis undeniably will have to leave, because, he's a guy with many interests. He will be 39 by the end of his contract. So yeah, there's a lot of factors. George will be 25, 26, many productive years to come. I believe he will be able to beat him in some occasions, but in other occasions, he'll be more than happy to actually say, okay, I'm backing out, give the guy the first move or the win or whatever. I know that it's my turn You don't have any other guy to do it. No, neither Esteban Ocon is in the team anymore, or actually regarded as a team member since he joined Alpine and actually signed a 3-year contract. Neither Nick de Vries has this potential, maybe. Frederick Vesti is 18 or 17, so it's a long way out. But yeah, I would feel pretty sure if I was George.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think he's in that really advantageous position where I don't think he really has to prove anything to everyone at the moment. I think everyone knows of Russell's qualities and what he can do, and I think he can afford, as you said, Dimitris, to play the long game in that. I think, though, there's another side to this where, as we've mentioned before, Hamilton is the outgoing driver, or at one point he will be the outgoing driver. At one point he's going to have one more year left on his contract, while George Russell will be the future. So how are Mercedes going to approach that? Are Mercedes going to take the approach of, well, Lewis, we know, you're always going to be Lewis Hamilton in our eyes. You're going to be our 7-time world champion, but George is our future. So, are they going to always give Hamilton the benefit of the doubt, or maybe is there going to be a point where there's a flip? And I think that's going to be really interesting to see in the inter-team dynamics. Jess, do you have anything to sort of add on any of that?
Yeah, as long as they need to get that sorted, because I didn't think about that until we just said that. They need to get that sorted, because when Leclerc joined Ferrari, it was, Vettel be number one, Vettel's number one, Vettel's number one. And then Leclerc joined, started slightly outperforming him and doing slightly better. And there was this conflict within the team, and it started hurting the team as a whole, as well as Vettel and Leclerc. And we saw it right up until Vettel left. They had this odd dynamic, but yeah, I think they need to sort that out. Definitely, they need to decide what they're going to do. Otherwise, they're going to end up with a very sticky situation on their hands, I think.
And of course, they've gone through the Nico Rosberg years, so they've got that experience under their belt of how to possibly handle the tension if it does arise. But suppose they haven't really had to handle anything quite as hot as that ever since through the Valtteri Bottas years. So it might catch them unawares after a couple of years of having quite a nice, harmonious relationship. So who knows really what's going to happen there. I guess if Russell is half a second quicker than Hamilton, he won't be, or he might be, but theoretically, if he was half a second quicker, then I guess the team would just naturally galvanize around Russell, because I guess that's sort of what happens organically in Formula One. I saw a question the other day, or I saw a statement that said, is Russell's start of next season going to be important? Like, say, making a first impression, like, say, Yuki Tsunoda's impression at AlphaTauri this year, or Daniel Ricciardo's impression at McLaren this year. If he plays the second fiddle game, like the Bottas game, is that perception of being a number 2 driver going to stick to Russell? It might do. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I had a thought on that, because first things first, I believe that we have to look at the press release, and we have to look at a certain quote that George actually said. He said, "I'm here to learn from the best to ever do it. I'm here to learn from the greatest driver of all time." That says to me a lot. It's not only just, to maybe get the praise from Lewis, because Lewis will read that and he'll be like, "Oh yeah, this guy really thinks that I'm the best. Oh yeah, and I believe that he's very talented," as he has already said. But I do believe that it is to lower the expectations. To say, look, I am a very talented, very quick driver. I have a fair amount of experience in F1 after 3 years, but I am no Lewis Hamilton, and no one is Lewis Hamilton, actually. No one was Michael Schumacher, no one was Ayrton Senna, no one was many of these guys. I am George Russell. I am very quick, I am very talented, but I'm also very young, and I can do some mistakes. You have to forgive some of them. That's why no one battered him after the punt that he had in Imola last year. I believe that he will go full blown, all the knives out, and ready to chop some fingers and get off with a win or 2 or something like that. Yeah. Who knows? It's 2022, new regulations. But I do believe that we will see a slump. I do believe that he will do mistakes. And as I said before, I do believe that sometimes he will pull his foot off the gas and say, okay, Lewis is faster, or Lewis has to win. I will yield. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, and I think that you can tell that he's humble and he's sort of willing, as you said, he's willing to learn and to be quite open to whatever process happens to him at Mercedes. And as you said, he has the ability to do that. He knows he's the future. So there's no, unless he's 5 seconds off Hamilton for an entire season, he's not going to be thrown out that team anytime soon. So he's in a brilliant position. But it's quite an interesting dynamic as well from the perspective of, say, Verstappen or Red Bull, because I think I saw that Verstappen said in a quote, he said that Russell going to Mercedes could help him across the title fight. And I found that quite an interesting statement, because when you think of how Bottas has been at Mercedes this year, of course he's been helpful in the Constructors' Championship, but there's also been times where he's also hemorrhaged points, kind of, you can argue, to Perez throughout the season, alongside other drivers like Norris or Leclerc or Gasly, at times where he should have been sort of taken up the mantle of that second driver at Mercedes. So, there's an argument there to be made that Russell will come and slot straight in and do extremely well in that fight for that Constructors' Championship and be almost that rear gunner to Lewis Hamilton that Lewis kind of had at the start of their careers together, Bottas and Hamilton, but sort of faded in those last couple of years. But Verstappen seems to think it's going to help him going into next season. Jess, do you have any thoughts on that?
Judging on that quote, he's referring to the 2007 season where Raikkonen won his World Championship, because essentially it was Lewis and Alonso's championship for most of that season. Lewis, I think, he was on top, and Raikkonen lost it because essentially they kept fighting between themselves and their own team couldn't handle it and lost it. So there is potential there. We have history in F1 of that happening, and that might happen. But something tells me that Russell's already got experience in that machinery, and as Dimitris said, he's looking to learn and grow. He's not looking to cause waves immediately. So I think he will become that rear gunner. But by the end of the season, who knows, with a few wins under his belt, we could see a slight change of the guard, maybe. I still believe there's going to be some tension somewhere.
But I mean, we've talked a little bit about, the importance of Russell going to Mercedes. And I think this is actually a really cool point in terms of the generational switch that's happening in F1 right now, because, we've been talking so much about the Hamilton versus Verstappen battle, which has been the sort of the new versus the old. But it's almost like there's so many drivers now circling Hamilton, isn't there? You've got Verstappen, you've got Leclerc, Russell, even Norris to an extent could be, floating around there if McLaren get their act together in the new regulations. And it's almost like there's this great prize fighter in Hamilton with all these young guys, trying to usurp him going into the new generation. It makes for a great subplot going into 2022. But I think it's rare, isn't it, that you get this sort of sudden generational change where suddenly all of these top guys are in the right seats at the right time. I think at times across the years, there've been these sort of power vacuums when big world champions have sort of vacated seats. I think it's a really cool and exciting time in Formula One, isn't it, Dimitris?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we forget that these guys are really young, even though they are in the sport for many years. Actually, Verstappen is fairly experienced for his age. He has over 130 Grand Prix under his belt. But we don't view him as much as a young guy because he's been here since 2015. So that's unfair because he's 24. He's very young. He has a lot of potential yet, even though he may be world champion this year. It's only one championship. He has the potential for many more, as we have seen. But you never know. I believe that the young guys actually do see Lewis in the way that Fernando saw Michael back in the day, because they did have a deep rivalry. They did not like each other. They did not. But right now, I believe that these guys really admire Lewis Hamilton, and that's something that is not always a given. When you're the young gun, you want to disrespect the authority, but they don't. Lando and George are British and they love him because they saw a compatriot winning. Charles Leclerc has always said that Lewis is a very good driver and they respect him. Max even said so, even though they're in a tough battle. That's weird, but that's also very nice. And Lewis is fairly, youngish in terms of athletic abilities.
Yeah.
So he may have some years more to actually battle these guys out and actually winning them.
To the dismay of everyone else in the field. I mean, Jess, I'm going to throw this out to you before we move on to obviously our kind of second topic of discussion. But if you were to bet on it now, is Russell cut out for it? Is he a championship caliber driver from what you can see at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, it's a case of you have to look at how the driver performs when that car is not at the top of its game. And for me, George Russell is performing, well, is outperforming his machinery, as I said already, but he's performing to a level which shows a lot of maturity. I think he's definitely the right caliber. I think we're just, as I say, I think we give him a couple, I don't know, of maybe one season to learn and grow. And then maybe the second season we sort of get a bit more analysis into whether he's doing well enough or not. I think he's ready.
Brilliant. Well, that brings us on to our final topic of discussion, which we'll try and race through now because we're running out of time. But of course, the knock-on effect of all of that is Valtteri Bottas is going to move on to pastures green, or shall we say pastures white and red? Way! But the writing was on the wall, wasn't it? And we kind of discussed Bottas's performances over the past couple of podcasts. But Jess, is this a good move for Valtteri, or is this a good move for Alfa Romeo as well? This is quite a coup for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a good move. It's a good move on both sides. For Valtteri, he got his multi-year deal that he wanted and I think needed, because that uncertainty every year is not good for stress, I imagine. He's going to be a leader in a team which need a leader. Kimi's a good leader, but I think, let's be honest, he saw it much more as a hobby and was just having a good time. So he probably, and he's famous for not saying much. So it'll be good to see Valtteri in there and really get to grips with that car and really sort of lead the team into new and better things with the new regulations coming. I think it'll be good for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. What do you think, Dimitris?
I'm sure that it's the best for both of them because Alfa Romeo really need a guy that can actually win races and has that potential in him, which means he's fast. Midfield is a part of the grid that actually, I don't know, maybe rewards drivers over teams sometimes. Maybe a pretty heroic drive from a guy in a team that's not meant to be there is actually rewarded and gets you some good amount of points, as we've seen, especially last year and this year as well. And I do have a very good opinion on Fred Vasseur, the Alfa Romeo Sauber team principal. The guy was a genius in the feeder series with Art Grand Prix. He has the potential to lead the team onto great things, actually. And I'm very hopeful of the Stellantis situation because Sauber recently... actually, Stellantis reaffirmed their support to Sauber. They extended their partnership. Ferrari is the technical supporter and they give them the engines and the gearboxes and whatnot. So that's good on that side as well. It's a good package for Valtteri and whoever joins the other side of the garage as well. It's a good team.
Yeah, and interesting times, isn't it? I mean, they've got a big investment happening at the moment in terms of the new simulator and new wind tunnel package that's yet to arrive in a year or two's time. So they could be really well poised to make at least a significant jump up the field next year. It's exciting time, shall we say, for Alfa Romeo. But, I guess one of the big questions is obviously, Bottas, he had a very particular mindset going into Alfa Romeo of what he wanted. And I think, I can't remember which one of you alluded to, but it was that multi-year contract. I think he alluded to that in one of his media appearances, that stability above all else is important to him. And I think drivers, when they're getting to this stage of their career, maybe just later on, they want to know that they're valued at a team for years to come. And I think you can see that in drivers, how 1 year contracts can severely affect their performance across a whole season. And I think, yeah, a multi-year contract is going to be extremely beneficial to Valtteri. Jess, do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. And it gives him time to sort of get to grips with that team and then lead it in the right direction. As Dimitris said, he's a race winner. He knows how to lead from the front, I guess. But he's worked with Fred before. He won his, I think it was GP3 title back in 2011 with him. Yeah. So he knows the two of them know what each other are capable of. And with that multi-year deal, they'll be able to put in the work for a number of years to come. I think it's vital. I did hear him say, I think, that he rejected the Williams seat because they were only going to offer him a 1 year deal. So it's vital for him. I think it's extremely important.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting times, but exciting times as well for Valtteri Bottas going forward. Dimitris, I just wanted to close this podcast just by throwing this out to you, and just a sort of reflection on Valtteri Bottas's Mercedes career. In hindsight, how do you think he will be remembered across his time?
Well, that's funny, because here in Greece, they know me as the Valtteri Bottas hater. Not fair. It's not fair at all, actually. But yeah, the reason they say that is because I do believe that Valtteri was really good only 1 year, his first year. After that, he had a lot of ups and downs. He made slumps during the season. He didn't help in some occasions his team or his teammate. And that has been more profound than ever this year and last year. And maybe this year even more, because they have actually a competitor and they actually fight for the championship as well, which is Red Bull. So I do believe that he was very good in 2017. And after that, he didn't have the consistency needed to actually be up there and be a reliable source of points. And yeah, but overall, he's one of the drivers that it would be a pity to actually lose. There was no reason to lose him. It's good that he's in F1. He was not a Mercedes material anymore just because there is George Russell as well. But yeah, I if I had to rate him, I would say he was good for what he did, even though sometimes he was not very consistent with his performances.
Brilliant. I think actually we've got just a little bit of time left for Jess's thoughts on that. Jess, I think how do you think Bottas will be remembered, or maybe your thoughts on reflecting on his career at Mercedes?
I think very similarly to Dimitris, that he will be remembered. He'll be remembered as that second driver, as that wingman to Lewis, a bit like Rubens Barrichello is remembered as that wingman to Michael Schumacher. He'll be remembered as a good driver, and he did well for the team. They achieved a lot together, but whether he will be remembered as a standout, I don't know. I hope for his sake that he gets a resurgence at Alfa Romeo, so the end of his career is not like that. But yeah, I think very similarly in the last couple of years, he's not been that great, not very consistent, but he's a good driver. He's a good driver.
Brilliant. Well, let's end on that. He is a good driver. But let us know what you all think. Let us know your thoughts on Russell's move to Mercedes and whether you think he will be a match for Hamilton going into 2022. Is Russell ready? And is this a good move for Valtteri Bottas? And how will his legacy be looked back on? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, or reply to our posts on social media. But thank you all for listening. And if you enjoyed this, remember to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and subscribe to us on YouTube or Spotify, or visit us on www.thepitcrewonline.net. But a special thank you to both Jess and Dimitris for joining us for this edition of the PitCast. It was great having you on, Dimitris, and I hope we have you back on again soon.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Fantastic stuff. Well, let's just quickly end by saying, where can our listeners find you both on social media? Jess?
On Twitter, at Team Motorsport Girl.
And Dimitris?
At Dimitris underscore? Is that the underscore? Bizas. Bizes.
And you can find me at Wheeler_deals. But that's it for another episode of the PitCast. As always, we will see you out on track.